Hey everyone, it's Bennett Forrest, your Fantasy Football Commissioner, here with an exciting Week 12 Fantasy Football Weekly Recap and also a couple tidbits of information before we get started. So I'm happy to report that the Fantasy Football Trophy is officially in Connecticut. It is in my hands. It has been updated with last year's winner. And of course, we're really upset with John Gallo for taking almost a year to send this. Reigning champ Doreen of Third and Oolong has not had the benefit of being able to proudly display her fantasy football trophy last year. I'm going to get it to her this week, and she can enjoy it for a couple weeks. She's also doing very well this year, and there's a chance she may just get to keep it for another year anyway. So John was this close to getting out of the league, but he came through just in the nick of time with the book, and we now have it in Connecticut. I have another bone to pick with another one of our team, with one of our owners. We'll get to that in a minute. But let's get to the recap. I mean, it's really getting exciting here. We only have 2 weeks left in the regular season. The teams that needed to win last week, most of them lost, including the Slim Aussies, which I think we'll get to in a minute. Slim Aussies, unfortunately, lost a great opportunity to, take sole possession of the fourth playoff spot, but alas, did not happen, so it's still wide open. So let's take a look at the weekly scores. So first of all, we have a really close game where the Cartel edges out the Colon Cleansers 146 to 138. And I believe this did come down to Monday night. What was it? Cleveland and Baltimore. No, there were no players. This game was done Sunday night. Let's see, do we have any New England or Denver? No, this game looks like this game. The Broncos defense with 5. The Colon Cleansers got close. Doesn't look like it was enough. Looks like the Cartel had the win in the bag at the end of the early games. A nice close matchup here. No, didn't really come down too much to the wire, but it was an 8-point difference. Obviously, Calvin Johnson, huge day for the Cartel. It's interesting how 3 or 4 weeks ago was doing nothing. I mean, he's had, obviously, catches all year, but he only had 3 touchdowns all year, only one 100-yard game, and the next thing you know, he's got 8 catches, 93 yards. And this is what you expect every week from Calvin. But that's obviously the biggest factor. And, of course, Matt Hasselbeck, great pickup 2 weeks ago for the Cartel with 23 points. So Cartel, I believe, has the 4th playoff spot in his own hands right now. We'll get to the standings soon. Let's look at some other games. Here's another close game, which was the Slim Aussies. First time in a long time we've had a Bench Stud Award winner, which, for those of you who don't remember, the Bench Stud of the Week goes to the person on the bench that scored tons of points that would have won the game for the team had they started him. So the big winner is T.Y. Hilton. And as you can see, we have a 15-point spread. We had 12 points and 27 points. So had I had T.Y. Hilton in 27 points instead of Ronnie Hillman, it would have been the 4th tie of the year for Graceland. That would have been crazy. So that would have been unbelievable. Graceland gets away with a win. They're still undefeated, 8-0-3. Both teams had equally disappointing performances. We had starting running backs with 3 points and 4 points here. Devontae Adams, nothing. A little bit of just enough to get over the top with the quarterbacks, and then of course T.Y. Hilton, who had, I believe, 2 catches the week before, 2 catches for 21 yards. The week before 5, 1. So really has been struggling all year to get any points, and has his second best game of the year, 95 yards and 2 touchdowns. Obviously, that would have given the tie to the Slim Aussies. Was not meant to be. A little bit disappointing for Thomas Rawls, who came off a monster game. He started the game with some crazy yards and just couldn't keep it going the whole game. Did have a garbage touchdown towards the end, which helped, but at the end of the day, Graceland stays undefeated. Slim Aussies fall to 6-6, still in the playoff hunt, but really struggling due to tiebreakers. 3 other games to look at. Let's take a look at the highest scoring team of the week. The Rawhide Super Mules have had a very disappointing first year in the league, but they get their 3rd win of the week. They had Russell Wilson, had his best day, 5 touchdowns. Jeremy Maclin had a good day. And he's a great player. He just can't stay on the field. You see, early in the year he was putting up great numbers, and then I think he was hurt, wasn't doing much here, but then all of a sudden breaks out with a huge game for the Super Mules, along with Russell Wilson, and even only 7 points for Drew Brees and single digits for a lot of big players. They get the 207 points. Jarvis Landry I missed, who's been a great addition for Miami. So obviously those 3 big scores, and if you add Julius Thomas, 4 scores, that makes up for a lot of single-digit scoring. Unfortunately, Third and Oolong, who's still leading the division, is still 8-4, sitting pretty, just didn't quite get enough points from their team and they just get mowed down by the Super Mules. Another game. Now this gets to the bone to pick time. The Calvinators have pretty much given up on the season, but as we know, that's no excuse for not setting a lineup. If you'll notice here, we have Justin Forsett, injured reserve. Zach Stacy, injured reserves. Amendola was ruled out before the game. So 3 people that should have had at least someone else on the team. Now, obviously, with the Calvinators not picking up people and not paying attention to their team, they didn't have many alternatives on the bench. And so they lose. They fall to 1-10-1. And it's just disappointing when you have one person where other people, for the integrity of the league, need the one person to at least set a decent lineup so they have a chance to beat some of the top teams. And the Calvinators are definitely on probation for next year. There's a chance they might not be invited back. We'll talk offline. It's family. We're not going to go crazy here, but Greg Forrest, you're hereby on notice that your team, your league standing is in jeopardy here. But the Kicking Academy, even with Tony Romo, it was not looking good. Thursday night gets -2. He's out. But throughout the weekend, as you know, they all count. And Odell Beckham had a gorgeous touchdown, but it was complete garbage time to get the 30 points. Adrian Peterson also, I believe, had a garbage touchdown to seal the win. Not garbage, but just insurance. And that overcame Tony Romo, and they get the win. They're 8-4. They're tied with Third and Oolong, first in the MASH division. And Calvinators, again, disappointing. Obviously, their season's long over with. One final game, we have the Stallions keeping their playoff hopes alive with a win. Obviously, the Travelers lost a big opportunity to really secure a playoff spot. They would have been 7-5. But obviously, the Stallions had a great game. You have Fitzpatrick and Phillip Rivers, 33 points apiece. You'll take that all day. And just very consistent throughout the whole lineup. And even had a 23-point quarterback on the bench that wasn't even needed with Fitzpatrick and Rivers. On the other hand, Aaron Rodgers has been real disappointing. I mean, look at Aaron Rodgers' point total. I mean, it's unreal. 25, 23, 40, all the way down. And he's just had some bad games. He had that bad game at Denver. He had the bad game at St. Louis. And he had a decent game at Detroit. And a decent game in Minnesota. But only 1 touchdown against Chicago at home, I believe. So Aaron Rodgers got to be the most disappointing player in the league, and just couldn't get enough points for the Travelers. And the Stallions keep their slim playoff hopes alive at 5-6-1. They get 184 points. So let's take a look at the standings. And with 2 weeks left in the regular season, the standings are vital. We have Graceland obviously sitting pretty. They're in. They've clinched the division with 2 games to go. Finkel and Third and Oolong haven't quite clinched a playoff spot yet. They could both lose in theory. One of them is going to win the division, but the loser could, in theory, lose the 4th playoff spot. So we'll have to see how it shakes out. And of course, I'm not sophisticated enough to go and analyze the standings and who's playing who and who's playing what. I'm an amateur here, so I don't know who's playing who and how that shakes out. I don't have all the scenarios set up, but just looking at the numbers, Third and Oolong and Finkel are really sitting pretty, but it's not quite over yet. And of course, you have a big bunch, and this has been like this all year in the Mish division with this big bunch here. 4 teams with 6 wins. Cartel's got the edge with the tie. Travelers have the edge over the Aussies with the points. You'll see the Aussies are in tough shape with the points. The Stallions, the Travelers, and the Cartel are all right there next to each other. So Graceland has clinched the division. They're in. Let's take the bracket. If the playoffs were to start today, we would have the Cartel would be in. The Kicking Academy and Third and Oolong would also be in to join Graceland. So we have 2 weeks left to play. Let's do a quick preview of who's going next week, who's going this week. So big matchup with the Travelers and the Slim Aussies. That's a huge game. The winner of that is probably going to be in great shape. The loser obviously will be in tough shape. Stallions have a chance to pick up a game if they can beat the Super Mules. Colon Cleansers, this is a big game for them too. If they lose, they're out. So they need to beat Kicking Academy. But that'll make things interesting because, again, Kicking Academy hasn't quite clinched a spot yet. Cartel needs a win over Graceland to maintain the 4th position. And Third and Oolong basically just needs to be the also-ran to clinch a playoff spot with a win. So obviously the Graceland's probably clinched, maybe not the #1 seed yet, but has definitely clinched the division. And we'll see. 2 games left. There's a game tonight. Fairly decent game. What's the real-life game? It is... I totally forgot tonight's game. Anyway, you guys can look it up. It's Thursday. Thanks for your patience, as always. And, again, Doreen will get the championship book. It's coming up. So stay tuned for that, and have a great week, everyone.